Did you know that 97% of people admit to hiding how they really feel? Not to deceive, to survive. 3 out of 4 adults say they lie every single day, just to avoid conflict. And nearly 80% of us, we bottle up pain until it becomes physical. Stress, shame, secrets stored in our bodies. We smile when we're breaking, we laugh instead of cry. We say, I'm good, even when we're drowning. But silence doesn't heal, it haunts. This isn't a documentary. This is a mirror. This is the things we never say. Did you know that according to a study published in Nature Neuroscience, the average person lies at least once in every 10-minute conversation? But we're not talking about deception for gain. We're talking about survival. We lie when we say I'm fine. We lie when we smile while breaking inside. We lie when we laugh just enough to avoid the truth. But honesty, in this world, it's dangerous. From childhood, we're taught to perform. Be polite, don't cry, smile for the family photo. Don't be so dramatic. So we put on the face, the emotional armor. We become curators of ourselves. We walk into work, into relationships, into social media feeds as filtered, polished, appropriate versions of who we think the world wants. During the pandemic, a report from the Mental Health Foundation found that 74% of adults in the US and UK have felt so overwhelmed by stress they've been unable to cope. Yet most admit they never told anyone, not their partner, not their friends, not even themselves, because we're more afraid of being seen than we are breaking silently. We don't show the late night spiral. We don't share the panic before that meeting. We don't post the stillness of a depressive episode. We post brunch, we post grind mode, we post #blessed. And behind all of that, the weight of expectation, the weight of pretending, the weight of holding it all together when you're falling apart. Sociologist Irving Goffman once said that life is a performance, and he wasn't wrong. We have public faces and private selves, but the longer we wear the mask, the harder it is to take it off. Because what if you remove this mask and no one recognizes you? What if you cry and no one comforts you? What if you tell the truth and get left? That's why we shrink. We smile through grief. We go quiet when we want to scream. In that silence, it gets louder inside. A study from the American Institute of Stress found that emotional suppression can lead to higher risk of heart disease, memory loss, and even premature death. So yes, the mask keeps you accepted, but it also keeps you sick. We wear it to survive this world, but we lose ourselves in the process. And beneath all that armor is a very real human being, exhausted, aching, and desperate to be seen without needing to be perfect. Here's the question. Who are you when no one's watching? Not your brand, not your role, not your filtered version, just you. In the silence between how we feel and how we pretend to be, because the things we never say start here. Every single person you know is hiding something. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're scared. Scared of being rejected, scared of being judged, scared of losing everything. A groundbreaking study in Nature Human Behavior found that people carry an average of 13 secrets at any given time, and 5 of those they've told no one. Not their best friend, not their therapist, not even their partner. Secrets are more than just withheld information. They are psychological landmines. They don't sit quietly, they fester. Harvard psychologist Michael Slepian, one of the world's leading researchers on secrecy, found that carrying secrets lead to mental fatigue, reduced performance, anxiety, and depression, even more than the act of lying itself. Because it's not just about hiding it from others, it's hiding it from yourself. You tell yourself it didn't happen, that it didn't hurt, that you are over it, but your body remembers. Trauma researcher Dr. Bessel van der Kolk explains in The Body That Keeps the Score that unspoken trauma rewires the brain and reshapes the nervous system. That means your jaw tightens when you hear their name. Your stomach knots every time you see that place. Your heart races at 3 a.m. but you don't know why. The secret is screaming inside your skin. But here's what the science says. People who carry unresolved trauma are 3 times more likely to develop chronic illness. Shame, not guilt, is the most toxic emotion. The long-term shame. It's directly linked to addiction, self-harm, and suicide ideation. Stress from concealment, especially around identity, abuse, or mental health, leads to higher rates of heart disease, autoimmune disorders, and insomnia. Secrets don't stay secrets, they become symptoms. Let's say you were molested and never told a soul. You had an abortion you swore you'd never speak of. You're gay but still dating someone you don't love to keep your family from disowning you. You're using again but you're too ashamed to ask for help. We don't talk about it, so it talks through us. In our breakdowns, in our drinking, in our numbness, in our passive-aggressive rage. We carry guilt for the things done to us, things we never asked for, and we carry shame for the choices we made when we're just trying to survive. And that shame, it turns us into strangers to ourselves. A 2018 study from Columbia University found that people who actively ruminate on secrets, replaying them in their mind, analyzing outcomes, and imagining exposure, report lower life satisfaction, reduced motivation, and higher risk of isolation. Secrets aren't just internal, they shape your whole life. Your friendships, your career, your ability to be present. Because how do you show up when half of you is hiding? And the worst part? Sometimes we have buried the secret so deep, we forget it's even there. We just feel heavy, disconnected, like something's wrong and we don't know why. But here's the truth. You are not your secret, and you're not the only one with one. The real prison isn't what happened, it's believing you're the only one it happened to. So maybe, just maybe, this film gives you permission to look in the mirror and say, this happened, I'm still here, and I deserve to heal. Because the most dangerous secrets are the ones we never even say to ourselves. This is the things we never say. Alright, it's time to wake up, but you're tired, so you slap on a smile. You go to work, you say I'm good when someone asks. You fake laugh at a joke that isn't funny, but you show up like you're whole. Inside, you're not okay, and you haven't been for a while. According to a 2022 Mental Health America report, over 64% say they always or often feel emotionally exhausted, even around their friends and family. Not because they're weak, but because they're performing all the time. We live in a world where vulnerability is currency, but only if it's curated. Post a crying selfie, edit the caption, make your depression digestible, your trauma palatable, your grief aesthetic. But don't actually fall apart, don't actually break down, don't bleed out loud. You might ruin the vibe. We've turned healing into branding, pain into engagement, and we wonder why nothing feels real anymore. Because we're not comparing lives, we're comparing masks. That girl who has it all together, she cries in the bathroom before brunch. The guy with the perfect marriage, sleeps on the couch most nights. And the influencer with a six-pack and a business course just maxed out his last credit card. We don't just lie to others, we lie to ourselves. I'm fine. I'm happy. This is just a phase. Everyone goes through this. We normalize dysfunction so we don't have to confront it. The workplace is no different. You hate your job, but you wear the team player face. Your boss crosses boundaries, but you keep your head down. You're burnt out, but you keep grinding. Because lazy is the worst thing you could be called. And the numbers prove it. 76 of the United States employees report symptoms of burnout. Only 1 in 4 feel they could be completely themselves at work. 41% of Gen Z workers say they've never spoken up about their mental health because they fear judgment or job loss. So we keep pretending, even in love, even in friendships, because no one teaches us how to just be real. We're taught how to be liked, how to be palatable, how to be accepted. So we shrink, we mute ourselves, we become a highlight reel of who we think we should be, and we convince ourselves that if we just keep smiling, one day we'll feel like the person we're pretending to be. But here's the thing, you can't heal what you perform. You can't grow what you're too afraid to admit. At some point, you have to take the mask off, even if it's ugly, even if it's messy, even if people walk away. Because the longer you pretend, the further you drift from yourself. And if you lose that, you'll lose everything. Yeah, this is the things we never say. So, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? Check your phone. Before brushing your teeth, before saying good morning, you open the portal. Scroll, tap, swipe, repeat. And somewhere between the sponsored ads, you forget what you're even looking for. You don't even realize you're addicted to distraction, to consumption, to comparison. You're not just scrolling, you're disassociating. In 2024, the average person touches their phone 2,600 times per day. Gen Z, over 4,000. That's 4,000 moments where your attention is hijacked, 4,000 chances to escape or get lost. But what are we really looking for? Connection, validation, relief. Truth is, we're chasing dopamine spikes and calling it entertainment. We're drowning in digital noise and calling it staying informed. Meanwhile, depression among young adults has risen over 63% since 2013. Anxiety diagnoses have doubled among teenagers in the last decade. We are the loneliest generation in recorded history, and yet we've never been more connected. This isn't just about social media. This is about identity fatigue, the irony. We have more voices than ever, but we rarely say anything real. If you change your mind, you're fake. If you speak up, you're canceled. So we water ourselves down, soften our opinions, post a safe thing like what's popular, and pretend we're not exhausted. This is digital performance at scale, and it's killing our ability to be. To be still, to be private, to be unfiltered, to be off. In other words, scrolling is rewiring your brain, which I dive more deep on my documentary on the scroll effect. Check it out. And underneath the highlights, the selfies, the aesthetics, lies a generation craving depth, but terrified of silence, because silence makes you feel everything. The loneliness, the shame, the unprocessed grief, the questions you've been avoiding, because we scroll instead because that's safer. But one day, you'll look up from your screen and realize you've been performing your life more than you've been living it. And that's a grief no filter can fix. Yeah, this is the things we never say. They told us, work hard, save up, buy a house, build a life. But the world changed, and they forgot to update the script. Let's talk about money. Not in a flex, not in shame, but in truth. Because that's the thing we rarely say out loud. We're all quietly trying to survive. In the US, nearly 78% of full-time workers live paycheck to paycheck. That's doctors, teachers, cops, chefs, you name it. They're struggling. Millennials are now in their 30s and 40s, yet only 37% own a home. The rest drowning in debt, trapped in cities they can't afford, working jobs that barely pay for groceries and gas. In Gen Z, they're being told to hustle for a future that doesn't exist. They're filming side hustles between panic attacks. They're selling feed pics to pay student loans. They're financially free on Instagram, but overdrafted in real life. Meanwhile, the cost of everything has exploded. Eggs up 81% since the pandemic. Rent up 30% nationwide. Credit card debt over $1.3 trillion in America, the highest ever recorded. Let's talk about wages. Flat, stuck, outpaced by inflation. But no one wants to admit they're struggling. Why? Because shame runs deeper than debt. We pretend to be fine. We post vacations we can't afford. We swipe credit just to feel normal. We work 2-3 jobs and still can't breathe. And when the anxiety spikes, we go silent, because poverty is still judged like a moral failure. This is what late-stage capitalism looks like. The wealthiest 1% owns nearly half of the world's wealth. Meanwhile, 60% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. And more than 500,000 people in the US are unhoused every night. We tell people to work harder, but no one wants to talk about chronic burnout, medical bills, $300 insulin pens, daycare costing more than rent, the trauma of growing up poor, or the emotional toll of being broke and blamed for it. This isn't laziness, it's systematic exhaustion. It's the mom doing DoorDash at night while her kid's asleep. It's the man who skipped the doctor because he can't afford the copay. It's a 19-year-old racking up student debt for a job that won't exist in 5 years. Money trauma is real. It's waking up in panic. It's saying I'm good while calculating overdraft fees in your head. It's pretending your stomach isn't growling at work. It's putting back the name brand cereal because the off-brand saves you 87 cents. And through it all, we lie. We smile, we say let's hang out soon, knowing we can't afford dinner. We wear the outfit, post the pic, fake the glow up, and suffer in silence. Because suffering in silence is more acceptable than being broke in public. But we need to start saying it. We need to say, I'm not okay, I'm scared, I feel behind, and I don't know how to make this work. Because that's what capitalism stole from us, our right to be honest. There's a word for this emotional weight. It's called economic despair. And now, it's one of the leading causes of anxiety in adults under 50. But here's what they don't teach. Your worth is not your paycheck. Your value is in your productivity. You don't have to earn the right to rest. You don't have to bleed to deserve stability. You are not lazy for being tired of surviving. If you're doing your best right now and it still doesn't feel like enough, please hear this. It's not just you. It's the system. It's the silence. It's the shame. And that's one of the deepest things we never say. We don't talk about it often, but many of us are haunted by the God we are raised to fear. Not the God of love, the God of shame. Let's start here. Over 84% of the world's population identifies with a religion. That's billions of people, guided, guilted, and governed by our faith. But faith isn't the problem. Silence is. We're told religion is love, but some of us grew up in churches, temples, or mosques where love had conditions. Be pure, don't ask questions, don't be gay, don't touch yourself, don't doubt God, don't be loud, don't be too much. Just believe, just obey, just repent. In America, 95% of adults raised in strict religious households say they were taught not to question authority. And those questions we couldn't ask. They became secrets, buried and heavy. We never said out loud, why would a loving God hate who I love? Why did they tell me sex would ruin me? Why did I feel dirty for touching my own body? Why did church feel more like a performance than a sanctuary? Why does shame still follow me even after I left? Religious trauma is a real documented psychological condition. It mimics PTSD, with symptoms like chronic guilt, sexual repression, deep fear of punishment, anxiety during prayer, panic over sin. And for many, purity culture didn't protect us. It just made us terrified of our own bodies. You can't teach kids that lust is evil, then expect them to grow into healthy adults. You can't tell teens they'll go to hell, then expect them to trust love when it finally shows up. Some of us still feel bad for exploring desire, even in a healthy relationship. Some of us never figured out where God ends and guilt begins. And then there's the other side, religious hypocrisy. The preachers molesting children, the churches protecting predators, the temples hoarding wealth while the poor go hungry, the cults disguised as community. We don't say this enough. Spiritual abuse is abuse. Manipulating people with scripture, gaslighting them into obedience, using honor thy parent to excuse abuse, that's not faith. That's fear wearing a robe. But even after all the damage, many still crave something real. Because deep down, we still want to believe. We still want to feel seen. We still want to belong somewhere safe. Healing from religion doesn't mean hating it. It means reclaiming your right to ask, to feel, to question, to choose your own path. Some people stay, some people leave. Some rewire the whole thing. All of it is valid. You are not lost just because you no longer follow the GPS someone else handed you. If nobody told you yet, you are not broken for walking away. You are not unholy for setting boundaries. You are not damned for protecting your peace. You are not a sinner for finding your truth. You are allowed to rebuild, to be spiritual, but not silent, to hold both grief and grace, to find God in sunsets and kindness, not just pulpits. Because sometimes the most divine thing you can do is speak the truth out loud. And for so many of us, this is one of the biggest things we never say. Let's be honest. Some of the hardest things we never say are the people who gave us life. Because family doesn't always mean safe, and love doesn't always come without conditions. 75% of people say they feel emotionally distant from at least one immediate family member. Not because they don't care, but because they don't feel seen. They don't feel heard, and sometimes they're scared to be honest. We grow up being told, respect your elders, blood is thicker than water, family comes first. But what about when it doesn't? What about when family is the first place you've learned to shrink yourself? We never say, Mom, you made me feel like nothing I did was good enough. Dad, I still carry the way you raise your voice. Grandma, your silence after what happened hurt more than what happened. I'm tired of pretending we're perfect at holidays when we don't even know each other. I have anxiety every time you call. Many of us learned early on that our feelings weren't welcome. You spoke up, you were disrespectful. You cried, you were too sensitive. You disagreed, you were ungrateful. So we learned to shut up, to perform, to keep peace by avoiding truth. Generational trauma is passed down like family recipes, but the ingredients are pain, silence, shame, and fear. Grandfather who never showed emotion becomes a father who doesn't know how to say, "I'm proud of you." A mother raised in survival mode becomes a woman who over-controls everything, out of fear, not cruelty. A child becomes a parent before they're even ready, emotionally parenting their own parents. In 2023, over 60% of adults in therapy cited unresolved family issues as key sources of stress. Let that sink in. So many of us are healing from what our own families never healed from. But here's what makes it worse. We still go to dinners, we still show up, we still play the roles, the responsible one, the quiet one, the angry one, the perfect one, and nobody talks about it because that's just how they are. No, that's not how they have to be. Some of us broke cycles, some of us got tired, some of us went ghost, some of us still haven't found the words. Some of us still want connection, but not at the cost of our mental health. You can love them and set boundaries. You can forgive and still need space. You can stay and still want better. You can leave and still grieve it. We don't talk enough about how complicated family can be, how painful it is to outgrow people who raised you, how heartbreaking it is to realize they might not never apologize, how confusing it is to miss someone who hurt you. And sometimes we become parents ourselves, and it hits us. How much wasn't okay? How much we never got, how much we now have the power to do differently. Breaking cycles doesn't mean being perfect. It means choosing truth over tradition. It means saying the thing your parents never said. "I'm sorry, I see you." And if no one in your family ever said this to you, I will. You deserve to be protected. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to be nurtured, not just provided for. You deserved a childhood that didn't become your therapy homework. Family is complicated, but your truth is not. You don't owe anyone your silence, even if they share your DNA, because some of the deepest things we never say are the ones we still whisper into the mirror, hoping one day they'll understand. This is not just a documentary, it's a mirror, held up to a world that forgot how to be honest. We live in a culture where pretending is survival. Smile for the camera, curate the caption, agree at the table, choke on your truth, but at what cost? 4 out of 5 people say they regularly hide their emotions to avoid burdening others. But when you hide everything, you become a stranger to yourself. We hide the panic under productivity. We hide our trauma under humor. We hide our truth under "I'm fine." We hide our purpose under fear. And the saddest part, we think no one else is doing it too. This is the quiet epidemic, a world full of people who are pretending they're okay because they think everyone else is actually okay. We never say, "I'm not okay. I don't love this life I built. I feel like a fraud. I don't know who I am without the mask," because it's easier to keep the feed clean, the image polished, the heart quiet. But silence is not strength. Silence is where suffering grows. Truth is rebellion. Truth is war in a world built on illusion. Telling your story, that's courage. Owning your pain, that's leadership. Saying what no one else will, that's freedom. This generation is burning out not from working too hard, but from holding too much inside. We're tired of toxic positivity. We're tired of being told to just be grateful. We're tired of the fake, of the filtered, and the performative. We want real, we want raw, we want truth. And here's the most terrifying truth. Most people will die without ever being fully known. Let that hit. But what if you're brave enough to stop that cycle? What if you told the truth? What if you wrote it down, said out loud, screamed it into the void? What if you stopped protecting the people who hurt you by staying quiet? Because healing doesn't come from pretending it didn't happen. It comes from finally saying what needs to be said. And sometimes the truth isn't loud. Sometimes it's a whisper you finally stop ignoring. I deserve more. I want to be free. I'm not who they think I am. I'm ready. This is your invitation to start saying the things you never said. To your partner, your parents, your boss, your friends, yourself. This is your revolution, and it doesn't need applause. It needs truth. So to the ones still holding it in, still smiling through the ache, still carrying secrets no one else knows, you're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, if we all start telling the truth, we won't need to scream anymore. because we'll finally be heard. This is the end. And it's the beginning. This is the things we never say.